What's up, ladies? Welcome to another episode of Life Lessons with Lore, where we have open, honest, authentic, heart-to-heart conversations on love, life, faith, womanhood, and everything in between. My name is Loretta, and it is always an honor to have you here on the podcast. Thank you so much for choosing to spend this time with me. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much. You are so welcome. Just in case you don't know me, my name is Loretta. I'm a Nigerian living in Australia. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And of course, if you're a returning listener, thank you. It means the world to me that you choose to spend this time with me. And of course, you're a family. So welcome. Yeah. So recently I celebrated my 1-year wedding anniversary. Yay. And yes, my marriage turned 1 year a few weeks ago. And I had such a beautiful time celebrating with my boo and some of our friends. I'm so thankful. Honestly, I am so grateful to God. I mean, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience, a beautiful time. Thankful to God. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about the event and how delightful it was. But today, I actually want to talk about some of the lessons that I am learning in my 1 year of being married. Now, this is just a disclaimer, a huge disclaimer. This is not marriage advice because I don't want anyone misconstruing anything that I say here. This is not marriage advice. I'm not here to give anyone marriage tips or tell them how to make their marriage work or anything like that. I feel like, I've just been married for a year, so I'm still a baby in this thing called marriage. And so I wouldn't consider myself to be experienced enough to give advice. These are just my own learnings, my own lessons, things that my own, takeaways, right? So if you find them useful or insightful, awesome, right? But please, this is not marriage advice. I'm not here to teach you how to make your marriage work, okay? So maybe someday when I would have been married for like 15 years, then I would have garnered enough experience. So yeah, the things I'll be sharing are just, again, my own lessons so far. So please don't get it twisted. All right. So having established that, here are 7 lessons I have learned and I'm still learning in my 1 year of being married. So lesson number 1, the chief of them all. It is hard to do marriage without God. I know, it is hard, like seriously, because there are some situations that only the wisdom of God can help you. The reason is because honestly, being married requires you to function with some kind of unction, some kind of like wisdom to be married. The Bible says that a wise woman builds her home and a foolish one pulls it down with her own hands. Because and then it is not just any kind of wisdom. So I'm learning that you need the God kind of wisdom, divine wisdom, to operate in your marriage. Honestly, for example, there are times when I would want to say certain things to my partner and I will feel a kind of restraint in my heart telling me it's not time to say that yet. There are moments when I realize I need to give my husband space, not out of malice or anything, but just because I can sense in my spirit that he needs that alone time. He needs that time. He just needs some time to himself to, decompress. And wisdom will teach you that it's not everything that you see that you say. Sometimes you also must be willing to lose the argument in order to gain the peace. Wisdom will teach you to not withhold kindness and love even when you're upset. And being upset doesn't mean you should be disrespectful. You learn that. Wisdom will teach you that, right? And again, as a woman, You are the energy in your home. Now, a lot of people might argue with this and they might not agree with this, but that's fine, right? And it's just one of the things that I am learning in my own home, in my own experience, right? Is that as a woman, I am the energy in my home. I bring the atmosphere. I determine the atmosphere. My energy permeates every room. So if I am in turmoil internally, that energy, that atmosphere would typically reflect that inner turmoil. I know it's remarkable. It's remarkable, right? And so I'm learning the power of being a woman, being a wife. It's deep. As a woman, you wield a lot of power, and you need wisdom to be able to harness that power that God has given to you as a woman. So you really need the wisdom of God to be able to navigate things in your marriage. This is the number one lesson that I am learning. So the second thing I'm learning is the importance of forgiveness. And this one, oh my Lord. This one, I once heard that marriage is a union between two good forgivers, right? And when I heard that statement for the first time, it didn't really make sense to me because I thought, what's the big deal, right? But being married these 12 months, oh my God, you will forgive. Oh, no, you will forgive. And the quicker you can do it, the better for you. The saner you become. Because sometimes too, you have to forgive in advance, because you know that thing you told your partner not to do yesterday, he's going to do it again. He's going to do it. He's going to repeat it. So I'm learning that marriage is about constantly forgiving, constantly letting things go. Offenses will come, and they will come very often, but forgiveness is crucial. It is critical to the very survival of your marriage. It's critical to the very health of your marriage, and even to your own health, right? So in fact, right now, to be honest, what I do now is to not expect too much. I don't expect too much. I expect those offenses to come. And the reason is because I realize that sometimes the reason we get easily offended is that we have placed too much expectations on the other person. So when they falter, we get disappointed. But nobody's perfect, right? People make mistakes. For example, one time I told my husband to take out the trash before he went to bed. He didn't. And the following morning, I told him to take it out on his way to work. And guess what? He did not. Of course, I was so upset. I was so pissed. And mind you, this was not the first time he was doing that. However, there have been days when he'll take out the trash without me even prompting him to. So what did I do? I took out the trash. Of course, I was pissed. I was taking out the trash and I was cursing. Yeah, but I'm learning that, look, in this thing called marriage, we will offend each other. We will both not behave in ways that the other person expects us to behave, right? So it is important for us to grace each other when we fall short. Forgiveness is important. Patience and understanding are equally critical. The third lesson I'm learning is that kindness is the ultimate. Before I got married, one of the things that I asked God for was to marry a kind person, and for God to, much more make me a kind person too. I have learned that in marriage, kindness is a key element. It is important to be kind to your partner, even when you are mad, even when you're just fuming with rage and you want to spit all the words that you feel in your heart, especially when you feel like your anger is justified. But then after you've said those soul-piercing words, the other person will feel hurt by what you have said, long after the fight is over. So I'm learning that even in that moment where everything is heated and emotions are intense, it is important to be kind and mindful of your words and your action. Words are powerful and they can make or break your relationship. So it is important that you learn to be kind even in those moments. It's not easy, but it's essential. And not just even in words, but in action. So essentially, even when I am mad at my husband, I still need to serve him, and vice versa. Being mad is not an excuse to withhold love from the other person. It is not an excuse to withhold respect for the other person. Regardless of how you feel, we still owe it to each other to serve each other. Like, I know, it is crazy. It is hard. It is so hard, but that's what we've been commanded to do by God. We must serve each other regardless of how we feel. But yeah, it is what it is. Help us, Jesus. Help us, Lord. Yeah. So, fourth lesson. So the fourth lesson that I am learning is the importance of having a life. This one is essential. Hey, it's important. Every day I'm learning to remind myself that the marriage was built for me. I was not built for the marriage, not the other way around. So what that means is that outside of the union, I have a life that God has called me to live and an assignment for which I was created. So I must be just as committed to that assignment as I am committed to my marriage. I think having a life outside your marriage is equally important for the sake of your mental health. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy. And also so that you don't place all of that neediness on one person, expecting them to fulfill all your needs. Because honestly, when I think about it, my husband is not my Lord and personal Savior. My husband is not the source of my life. He's not the center of my life. Our marriage, as crucial as it is, as important as it is not my source, right? Our marriage is not the reason for which I was created. So he can't supply all my needs. He's not Jesus. There are just some things that he can't do for me. There are just certain things that there's a limit to which he can take care of me. You know, he's limited by his humanity. He's limited by his mortality. So there are certain things that only God can do for me. And there are certain things that only I can do for myself. So if I want to have a full and happy life, I must learn to not build my life around him or around our marriage. I must have other interests that bring me joy and fulfillment. And one of them is what I'm doing right now. Hosting this podcast and having this gist with you guys, right? Yeah, so it is important to have a life outside of your marriage. That is one of the things that I'm learning. So on to lesson number 5. The fifth lesson I'm learning about marriage in my 1 year of being married is the importance of emotional intelligence. You see this thing called emotional intelligence, ladies? This is a skill to learn and to master. And honestly, it's one thing that I am really trying to get a hang of, because it is a critical skill that we need today, not just at work, not just for our careers, but also in our relationships. Emotional intelligence is just basically being aware of your emotions and the emotions of the people around you. I'm learning that in marriage, your emotions and being able to handle them is a necessary ingredient. Sometimes you just need to learn to read the room. You just need to know when to speak and when speaking may not be the best thing for you to do at that moment. So as a woman, I'm learning that it is very hard because, because we're very emotional. So we always want to just, say things as we're feeling it, do things based on how we're feeling. But it is important that we are not constantly driven by our emotions. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in. Being aware of our emotions, being self-aware, and reflecting on our emotions. That is a superpower. And this is something that I'm honestly still learning, because naturally I'm very emotional. I'm very, very emotional. So God is still helping me. God is still working on my heart. And again, it's not about perfection, right? It's about progress. So yeah, we're making progress. Okay, lesson number 6. We're almost there. Lesson number 6 is the importance of dealing with your own dysfunction, dealing with your own trauma. Let me tell you, ladies, nothing amplifies your own deep-seated issues quite like marriage. I don't think anything magnifies it as much as marriage. Because there are times that I do certain things, and when I reflect on my actions and my words, I can see that action or those things I said came from a place of hurt, came from a place of my own childhood trauma. And you see, the good thing about being an adult is that you take responsibility. You learn to take responsibility. You take responsibility of your own healing. You take responsibility of taking care and handling your own dysfunction. So for me, being married has exposed me to my own trauma, and sometimes certain things happen and I react in a certain way, and when I reflect on my feelings, I can see that my reaction came from trauma. So I'm learning that you can't always use trauma as an excuse to keep misbehaving. You can't always use your own dysfunction as an excuse to keep hurting the other person. It's going to destroy your relationship. Right? So you must learn to deal with your deal with your trauma. Nobody's going to do that for you. Yeah, so if it happened as a child, I'm sorry it happened. It wasn't your fault that it happened, right? But now you're an adult. You have to take responsibility for it. So you have to do the inner work and do the work that needs to be done so that your relationship with yourself and your partner and other people can thrive. That's what I'm learning. Okay, so the final thing, last but definitely not the least, number 7 lesson that I am learning is to not compare. You see, comparison. Oh gosh, comparison is a temptation. And I'm learning that my marriage is not like everybody else's. My husband is my husband. He doesn't have to be like Mr. A or Mr. B or Mr. C. He doesn't have to. Comparison is a thief of joy. And honestly, in this age of social media, it is so easy to compare your spouse to some stranger on the internet. So easy. Like, you watch all those reels where the husband is doing something sweet for his wife and you're thinking, oh my God, my husband doesn't do that for me. And the next thing you're feeling sour, and then the next thing you're like picking a fight, just out of nowhere, because a seed has been planted in your heart, and now you are using that as a yardstick to measure whether or not your husband is doing what he should be doing based on what the other person is doing. So for me, I'm learning that I'm teaching myself actually to not compare my marriage to anybody else's. I'm not trying to make my marriage better than anybody else's marriage. No, that's not the goal. It's not a competition, right? I don't want to measure the success of my own marriage based on another person's marriage. No, they are not the yardstick. Right? The goal is to have a union that works for us in a way that works for us. And I realized that Gratitude helps us to manage that feeling of comparison. Just by being grateful for what God has done for you, just by being grateful for your portion, just by being grateful for what God has blessed me with, and not comparing it to another person's portion, it helps me to keep my heart in the right place. It helps me to be content with what God has blessed me with. So honestly, comparison is like a poisonous seed that can germinate in our hearts if we let it. And if we let it thrive, it will produce all kinds of perilous fruits. Disunity, strife, hate, bitterness, contention. And we really don't want that. I don't want that. So comparison, like I said, is a thief of joy. And I don't want anything stealing my joy and my peace. I don't want anything doing that to me. So I'm learning to contend for contentment. It's a fight. So I'm literally learning to fight every single day for contentment, because it is in contentment that joy will grow and blossom. Right? So yeah, that's it, ladies. 7 lessons that I am learning in my first year of being married. Like I said, this is not marriage advice, but if you find it useful, all good. I'm glad. And if you would like to share some other tips with me, please feel free to write me on lifelessonswithlaw@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Our social media pages will be up in a few weeks, and I can't wait to connect with you guys on social. I will keep you guys posted on the launch as soon as it happens. Thank you so very much for spending this time with me. I do sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I deeply appreciate you. Thank you. I'm sending you all my love and wishing you a prosperous 2024. I'm praying for you that this year will be an amazing year for you and everyone connected with you. Thank you so much. Bye.